Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the cool down lap presented by Midwest Motorsports. You're here for episode 21. Anthony Castor, driver of the 8, joined here tonight with Eric Thaler, driver of the 15, Justin Thaler, driver of the 2, and James Johnson, the voice of Midwest Motorsports. We're here to cover kind of the weekend action we had, both live in real life and with the league. So we'll go ahead and dive into it, guys. How'd your weekends go?
It was okay. Not amazing, but good hard fun racing.
Yeah, Justin, I seen you almost had a win there, man. How was it for you?
Yeah, pretty close. That was a survival of the fittest type of race on Sunday night, so not too bad.
Yeah, and James, how was calling everything?
Oh man, this weekend the Midwest Motorsports races were totally different from any other race I've seen at Midwest Motorsports. Okay, I don't know if it was a full moon or if Mercury's in retrograde or whatever astrology stuff was going on or what, but these were very rare. It was a rare weekend in Midwest Motorsports iRacing League. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't even know where to start. I'm gonna have to let somebody else start.
Well, before we go diving into the weekend action in the league stuff, we'll hit some of the real life stuff and let this kind of stew a little. So, did you guys see that Corey LaJoie's out?
Mm-hmm.
I did.
It kind of surprised me. I mean, that guy, he has the media personality, kind of like the Haley Deegan, where he has like a following. I mean, it ain't like a Haley Deegan following, but it's like a cult following in a way. So, be interested to see. I've seen some speculation. Maybe he gets a ride out at Spire, or even was it Front Row? Was the other choice?
In the truck series?
No. Maybe it wasn't Spire. Who's Haley drive for in the Cup?
That's Ware.
Yeah, Rick Ware.
Oh, okay. Rick Ware was one of them. There was another Chevy team I seen, but Rick Ware and it was Chevy team was his possibilities. I'd have to look at the article again, but hopefully he has some success wherever he goes. I mean, the dude's a likable dude. He just hasn't produced.
I think it goes to show that all the talk and all the followers in the world will only get you so far. At some time, it's a performance-based sport, and the people that pay the big bucks. I mean, Gamebridge put a lot of money in their new building, and I know Corey LaJoie is employee 001, and they did the whole rebuilding thing, and he's worked hard to get to where he's at. But at some time, Gamebridge wants their car in victory lane, and if you're not doing it, they got to put somebody else in that is, or they're getting pressure from all over the many different angles. And yeah, I mean, he had like, if you look at the numbers, Larry Mack was breaking it down. He's had like, I don't know, over 80% of his races were outside of the top 20. That ain't gonna cut it, Mac.
Oh yeah.
No. Yeah, not at all. Especially when there's a rookie that's outperforming them. Don't get me wrong, the rookie's really aggressive, but it does take that at times to put the car in the right position, especially back there, where they're competing in the back of the field. Like, it's not a give or take situation for that series, from 20th back. It's more of a take. You got to take it when you can. And Hocevar is always, taking those positions where Corey may be a little more, I guess, giving, right? More of that old school racer knowledge. And Hocevar is, obviously comes from the truck series and where it's aggressive every single lap and is taking every position he can get from, out of that car from that 20th place back. But Anthony, it is rumored that it could be Colleague.
Oleg. All right, that's the other one.
The 31 car, apparently Hemrick isn't signed for next season, and the 16 still is a rotational.
All right. James, you got anything that kind of caught your eye in real life over the weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, it's kind of weird not having any NASCAR racing. I like the Olympics, but I'd much rather be at the race car track.
Yeah, man.
My NASCAR, you know. But man, Formula One was at one of my favorite, probably one of the best racing circuits on the planet, Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. And man, what a race, start to finish. Wet qualifying, dry race. So you're not allowed to change the car at all from qualifying to racing. So setups were, totally different. The tires were unknown, relatively unknown coming into the race. I was just, I know Justin watched every lap too, so we'll be able to talk about this for a second. But I don't know how to even summarize it. Max Verstappen had a penalty, and I want to talk. Maybe Justin can give us some insight too on the rules for Formula One engines. You're allowed to have 4 engines for the whole season, and if you introduce there's like 5 components to the drivetrain.
Mhm.
You're allowed to have 4 internal combustion engines for the whole season, and you can rotate them in and out as many as you want. But after 4, uh, you get a 10-spot grid penalty. So they're just barely halfway in, and they introduced a new engine halfway through the season. So I think that means now they, instead of running 4 engines, down to 60% by the end of the season, by suffering a 10 grid penalty, they can now have 5 engines to put in rotation. So the top 4 might be at 80%, and that 5th one is at 100% now. And so they just have a bigger variety. They're going to have fresher motors towards the end of the season. I think that's going to pay off at the end. What do you think, Justin, from there, or about the race itself?
Yeah, I mean, last year, it seems like every year Max takes an engine at Spa anyways. I think last year he had the 10th place and then something else, so he started even further down back the field and ended up winning. But I thought it was an awesome race. It's one of my favorite tracks as well. I think it's hard to beat, and in terms of the flow of the track with the high speed sections, and then there are some lazier parts of the track. They have to be a little more technical, but yeah, I was gonna let you kind of cover the bases, whatever you want to talk about in terms of the race or the weekend itself.
Well, I thought Max was going to come to the field faster than he did. Um, I forget the tires were a scenario. Mercedes was fast, McLaren was fast, and then Leclerc, Ferrari couldn't get their way out of a wet paper sack. Man, they went from basically the front row to, I think Leclerc ended up 4th after the penalty. So yeah, George Russell ended up winning it, staying out on 1 pit stop. So he started on mediums and then put hards on and just saved his tires. And then the guys behind him, well, actually in front of him, had to pit for their second stop. And George said, I think I'm good. If we pit now, we're going to end up like 6th. So if I just stay out, I'll still end up 7th or 8th. So might as well just try to stay out. Ended up going ahead of his teammate. So he ended up winning the thing. And Hamilton, I mean, I guess he was happy for him, but Hamilton could have got some championship points. So Russell ended up taking the checkered flag, and getting on the podium and did the national anthems and everything. And then, I don't know, you want to talk about more racing stuff? Justin, what did you see in the race? I know you're a McLaren fan. What do you think about the McLarens?
Yeah, I mean, Piastri keeps showing he's the real deal, and I mean, I don't know. I would like to see a heart rate monitor on him during a race because he never seems to get really worked up at all during any type of event. But the start was, tough to watch. I think Lando tried to get down towards the inside of turn one as quickly as possible, but Piastri was right there, so he couldn't really close the corner off like he wanted to, and I think it was good in terms of McLaren, the team, that each driver gave themselves ample space, but right on the exit there, Lando, he did run too wide and almost completely off of the rumble strip there. He was kicking up some dirt, and he just got gobbled up. I think by the time they got up to the bottom of a Rouge, he might have lost three places or so, if I remember right. So he fell back kind of early. Um, there's quite a you brought up Max earlier. There's quite a few drivers who just know that their fight isn't with him. So I think that's what led him being able to get through the field relatively quick. There weren't many drivers really trying to battle with him until I don't remember if it was before or after his first stop, but Yuki Tsunoda, Red Bull camp driver, I'll say. He was giving them fits there, coming to the bus stop on one lap. Max just didn't seem like he was able to get around Yuki, so that was probably really frustrating for him. But ended up getting clear of him. But I mean, anytime I think it's just one of the universal truths is that if Charles gets a pole position, he's likely not to win the race.
Seriously.
So they continue to have their problems. But yeah, it was interesting. George was able he stayed out and he had pace still left in those set of hard tires. I mean, it was impressive because Lewis was on a hard charge there at the last couple laps, and he was gaining, and he just hit a wall and just couldn't get around them. And kind of what happened to Lando as well. Piastri for McLaren went on the hards and was really quick. Lando went on the hards, and I was expecting a little more, but I think he was just following Max too close and just getting too much temperature maybe in those tires, and he just couldn't get around them.
That's the other place I wanted to go was talking about clean air. I think because George Russell was in the front, he was able to get the maximum performance out of his tires by letting the downforce work. Just like NASCAR, I mean, clean air is always going to be king no matter what you're racing, no matter what the downforce levels are. If you don't have the aero grip, you're going to use the mechanical grip of the tire, and it's going to eventually wear out. And I think that's why we saw them kind of catch up but stall once they got behind somebody, and that's why Max had a hard time getting past Yuki. And good for Yuki for not just pulling over and let him go. I mean, Max doesn't own the track. Yuki's driving for a job too. And also they moved the DRS open zone down the Kimmel Straight, like 2 or 3 football fields, so it wasn't as easy to overtake after Eau Rouge before the next turn. So I think that made the racing competition a little closer as well.
I think that was a good move, not only because DRS was so overpowering, but I mean, that's just a classic corner where you want to be the trailing car, at turn one, because you're going to carry all that speed and momentum up through a Rouge, and you have that such a long straight, anyways. So I think that was a good move. With them moving it, further on back once you get onto the Kimmel Straight.
Well, everybody's happy for George Russell, and Mercedes won too. It looks like all is right in the world of Formula One. Anybody can win. The championship is wide open. It's not just a Max Verstappen show. And then the cars go across the scales, and the FIA stewards come down and says, "Whoop, George Russell, you're 1.5 kilograms too light, and you are disqualified and get 0 points." And they move everybody up a spot. So that was a surprise on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, you got to blame Mercedes, right? Like,
I don't know, okay, of course. And they took it on the chin. They accepted the blame for it, but
I mean, yeah, I can't.
We're-
I'm not a big George Russell fan, but I don't know how any of the blame for underweight. I mean, that's what, a splash of fuel. I mean, those cars weren't
3 pounds.
filled to the yeah, that car wasn't filled to the brim with fuel anyway. They want to have the lightest possible,
Yep.
but unless he did he not manage throughout the race? Like, maybe he should have to lessen the fuel burn. I don't know what the real deal was, but
I think after the race, not only Mercedes but even other teams acknowledged that because Spa is such a long track. How long is it? It's like 4 miles or something crazy.
yeah, it's ridiculously long.
They don't do a full cool down lap.
Yep.
They come towards a support paddock, they come right back around to do a shortcut, so they didn't have any time to roll over the marbles and pick up the tire. That's what they were saying. They could have got about 5 pounds or 7 pounds worth of marbles, a tire pickup, at any other track. It just happened to be this one that they miscalculated, not being able to roll over the marbles after the race. I mean, that is such a tight line. It just tells you the limits that Formula One's working on.
Rules are
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah,
Them's
that
the
they are.
rules.
Um, Eric, what do you got this week?
I got nothing.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. In the world of Formula One, still breaking news today, this morning, Carlos Sainz
Right.
has a multi-year deal with Williams F1.
Yeah,
Anywhere is better than no seat. Ask Corey
yeah.
LaJoy; he'll tell you.
That's true. How do you see that going, Justin? Do you think he'll improve that program, or do you think it kind of be more of the quota?
Well, first, Corey LaJoy might have to just take a car seat because he does blame a lot of people but himself sometimes. But look, Williams is. I mean, yeah, they're Williams, but I think they're on the up and up. James Vold has done a really good job just basically resetting that team. I think maybe in the last 15 years or so they've kind of just gotten complacent and ran under the banner that we're part of F1's history and we just deserve to be here just cause. And there was issues with funding and money and everything else, and as everybody knows, F1's all about money, so they did have their issues, but they're really being turned around. The past couple of years, they've gotten some influx of funding, which has helped them. I think it was so there was a big push for Carlos to go to Audi when they become a works team, just because of his father's connection to Audi. I think with the current state of that team, and not saying that Sauber, Stake, whatever they're called now, is going to carry over. But I think going somewhere that is a little more, I guess, have their feet more planted than a complete, startup, because Audi's going to be changing over a lot of personnel. I would imagine, trying to put their identity into the team rather than carry over a lot. But I think it's a good move. I think he didn't want to take the gamble and pretty much ride around at the absolute back, for how many years. So he signed a multi-year deal, and don't forget in 26, engine and aero regs will be different. So if Williams can nail the development, I think they'll be a lower end of the midfield competitiveness, maybe right there in the middle. But I mean, last year they were coming around with some good upgrades. Albon was really performing well in that car, and I think this is good for Carlos. Like James said, any seat's a good seat, but it also, I think, plays into the long-term roles if Albon is a driver who's going to stay there even longer. He's never had anybody to push him, so I think it's a good play. Carlos is I think he's severely disrespected in a way. I think he's always been kind of kicked around. I mean, I think it's good for him. He's got a seat, so I think he'll be happy there.
The one stat that kind of surprised me when they announced this, I think it was F1 made the post. It showed his career stats, and I was surprised to see he only had 3 wins. I don't know why. I thought he had more, but he was just, I guess, always near the front to make me think that the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think his first win was it Silverstone last year? I don't remember, but I mean, he's always been a very solid. He has his mistakes, but they're not as, I guess, frequent as other drivers who are even up at the front. But yeah, hopefully he'll do well. I hope he does well. I think he likes the challenge of bringing up, a team that might have been struggling for a while.
For sure. All right, guys. Oh, go ahead.
I'm a fan. I like Carlos, so I wish him all the best. I'll be rooting for him.
Well, we got a thumbs up from Justin on the Carlos move. So, with all ado, we're going to go ahead and move into our league stuff for the week. You guys ready for that then?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. So, tomorrow we start our Road Series season, correct? Our new season starts tomorrow?
That we do. Yep.
All right.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Circuit Navarro, so fairly new, one of the newer tracks in the recent releases. And last I looked today, it had like a 50% chance of rain. And we're going to have a big field, so I think currently we have a little over 30 signed up. I think we had 32 last time I checked.
You're right at 32.
Yep, so it's going to be a big field. Chance of rain, new drivers, existing drivers. It's a very technical circuit. Mixture of high speed and tight, 90-degree corners, slow corners, elevation changes. So it's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah. I was looking, just kind of skimming over the Road Series chat, and it looks like the practice session that was up was pretty insightful for people. I'm reading about blowing breaking points every now and again, so
I
it's
know who
going to
you're.
be an interesting one to watch.
I'm looking at that post. Don't believe that guy.
Oh, don't believe him?
Don't believe that guy.
Yeah, I could have swore I seen somewhere else in here about somebody blowing a breaking point, so it wasn't just the one guy.
The last one, he'll be just fine. I ain't worried about him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I see he's also say he's either breaking too soon or too late. So yeah, he'll be out front. I think it's going to be an interesting race to watch, especially if the rain comes into it. It's your guys' first season running the rain, correct?
Well, yeah. When Rain was released, there, what was it, like the GT3s, LMPs, and forget. But iRacing has slowly trickled into some, and it was always something on our It was always something on our what if. Well, if iRacing brings this to GT4, will we run Rain? league voted on it. So, there was basically two separate polls when we were setting up this season that the league chose to run iRacing's Tempest. So it's a crapshoot. I don't know. I mean, there's a chance every week has rain. I can't tell you. There's that, and then there was, do you want guaranteed races that have rain? So there are a few that it will definitely rain due to manipulating with the timeline editor. So yeah, it's going to be interesting if people haven't really practiced. I would advise it's not too bad. It's um, it's very intimidating at first, but I think once you kind of figure it out how you have to set up the car, for different corners and change your braking and maybe your inputs with your throttle and your gear changes, it's not too bad.
I
Yeah.
love the curveball. I like that fact that you don't know when it's going to rain. Nobody knows when it's going to rain. I mean, it'd rain in qualifying and then clear up in the break as you're coming to the grid, and the track drying, and somebody might take a chance starting on dries right off the bat, or who knows? You don't know. 2.5 mile track with 16 corners, and I've looked at a couple of iRacing track guides people that I've done on YouTube, and I actually watched a race from 2012. It was a FIA GT race, just to kind of watch and listen to how the commentators were calling it, but also like some of the racing moves and where the passing zones were. And it's going to test the people that are familiar with the track are going to go to the front pretty quickly, because you can lose a lot of time really quickly. And I think that is what's going to separate the Road Series tomorrow. And I have a question for Justin. And when you guys were coming up, and I'm not sure if Ant was involved in the scheduling too, but the fact that Navarro is a track that's not very popular, it's not run, it's not like Spa where every season you're going to have Spa and Nürburgring and Sebring maybe, or Daytona. Why did you choose the very first race, the season opener, to be at an unknown track? I love it. I'm just curious as to the decision-making process. Was that just a gap that had to be filled, and you threw a dart at a dartboard, or how did that process work?
No, it was a fairly new track, and it was out for some time. But one of the things we were really looking at was trying to mitigate tracks that might have had some, either troublesome turn one and things like that. So at least turn one. But now I'm wondering if maybe we'd made a wrong decision. Turn one's a pretty fast right hander, but it really sets up to a really tricky braking zone, followed by a 90 right hand turn. But yeah, we just kind of looked. We wanted to do something a little bit different, and a bunch of guys, said that track was pretty fun and challenging, which it is. You're gonna have to have a lot of patience, and you got to really hit your mark and not overdrive the car. So it wasn't really any surprise. So guys have had plenty of notice on what's coming up first on the schedule. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
60 minutes, and everybody starts tied. Everybody's got the same amount of points. So a new season, a clean slate. It's going to be great. It starts tomorrow. I think session opens at 7 o'clock and starts about 7:30. So tune in on Twitch if you're not racing in it.
Yeah, one of the things I think a lot of guys, myself for sure, are gonna have to get used to will be making sure they look at that forecast for the weather, because it's gonna be hard to you think you can just jump in the race and it might be overcast or something, but it's not gonna be wet. Hard to So it'll be fun. It'll be fun. We'll be all right.
Yeah, I guess James, maybe even Justin, but more so James on this one. Is there any battles you're going to be looking for at the beginning of the season that kind of carry over from last season?
Well, I've seen the chat as well, and Jason and Brian are last year's 1-2, and they definitely play down their abilities and their skills. So I'm curious to see where they uh, fit in. And let me look at the sign in. I mean, like I say, it's anybody's race. Travis Rowe was really fast. Walker McNulty, I'm sure, has put in some practice. He definitely puts in, does the work behind the scenes. And Shea McNeely is back. He's been fast. Um, and then the AM Division 2 is going to be fun to see how that develops. I mean, there's many different storylines that we're going to be able to talking about. So I don't think there'll be any shortage of commentary topics.
Awesome. Well, that's good to hear. So, with that being the start of the road series, you guys cool if we move on to oval?
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right. So the oval series, guys, was over the weekend. We had trucks out at Old Atlanta Friday night.
Mhm.
And I guess it was a full moon because we had some things happen that don't normally happen in the. I guess it wasn't a full moon because you couldn't see the track. So.
Ha,
Um,
ha, ha.
so
Yeah, it's.
go ahead.
I'll start, Ant. I'll start.
Go ahead,
So
buddy.
this one, it I can see that it was very deceiving as you're going around Old Atlanta. You're seeing the grandstands and these big poles with lights on them, and at some point, I said, I wonder when these lights are going to come on. And that's when we had to queue up our race director and say, Josh, do you think you could check to see if this track actually has lights? So, needless to say,
It
it
doesn't.
wound up not. It doesn't have lights, which is okay. I mean, obviously, I feel that we handled the situation very well. There's some that may think differently, but at some point we dictated that there was going to be 5 laps left in the race, and unfortunately that same time that verbiage come out, a caution had to be thrown. So we essentially ended the race there on that caution, because by the time we ran caution laps and everything else, it was going to be it was going to be dark. So we just took it upon, obviously, from the admin team to call it at that point. And I feel it was the right direction. It was the right decision. Unfortunately, we didn't get to play out the rest of the 12, 13 laps, whatever it was going to be. But at the end of the day, it was a good run at Atlanta. That's a fun track, and it was at times a little uber aggressive, but again, you're there. It's a lot of tire wear, so you're trying to take advantage of what length you have left on your tires and everything else. So anyhow, it was a first. It definitely was a first for us.
Yeah, it's a bummer to find out that the lights are just for looks. That or whoever runs the track didn't pay the electric bill. But
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they
racing.
had them back then, so I think iRacing was just added to their realism that in 2009. I mean, I could be wrong about that. Is it just iRacing that doesn't have lights, or did Atlanta really not have lights in '09?
I'm pretty sure Atlanta's had lights for honestly at least 30
Ever?
years.
It's got to
Yeah.
be an iRacing thing.
That's
Okay,
a good
Roger.
question. I mean, so on iRacing, does New Atlanta have lights?
That's. I mean, they should. They're running a night race there.
I
I guess we'll
mean,
find
on
out if the lights
iRacing
go
though,
out
does
next year.
it?
But
Well,
it
I think you guys you made the right decision, absolutely, because if you can tell by the time we were on to the second place finisher in the trucks, it was pitch black. You couldn't see the track from the blimp view. The overlay was there with the finishing order as they ran, but you couldn't see the track surface. The only thing you could see was the timing pylon, and then by the time we were done interviewing the winner, you couldn't even see the timing pylon. I mean, it was all black, and I don't think anybody could turn their screen brightness up enough to get to race any more laps at speed. So I think you did the right thing.
So the racing leading up to that point, how was that for you guys? Was it clean? They have a lot of green flag runs. Was there a handful of cautions? How'd everything look?
It was incredible, man.
Yeah,
I loved it.
It was fun.
We only had 6 cautions. One of those was a competition caution, and the other one was to end the race. So that's really only 4 cautions. And see what was the number of laps? 81 laps. That ended
81
up
out
going.
of yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it definitely bred some good racing Friday night for sure.
Well, good.
2 wide, 3 wide tires were slipping and sliding.
Mhm.
The sun was going down, so that was kind of fun to see too. Nicholas Aslan, Dustin Reinstedel, Travis Jones was the podium. Eric just outside the podium. You were coming there, Eric, or were you dropping
Yeah.
back? How did that work?
No, I was on the rise. I think I had a little fresher tires than the 2 in front of me, but it was just not enough time left. That's it. We ran out of daylight.
So all those guys saying there's a conspiracy theory wanting to call the race early that could have gone a little longer, Eric might have been able to improve. And Justin,
Yeah.
you weren't too far back in P6.
No.
Yeah, I had a decent run. It was fun though driving there. I mean, it was moving around on you, and you had to really pick your battles for what corner and everything. So I had a good time.
And let's not forget it was also a throwback. And so we got to most everybody's throwback, but I do want to give a shout out to the 2 guys that we did not get to show on screen. And Ron Schamer had the 97 Kodak. And it was near his hometown of Rochester, New York. He didn't say exactly who he was throwing it back to. And then, I don't know, was there any other throwbacks that really stuck out to either one of you guys? Or Ant, did you get to watch it?
I didn't get to watch the stream. I just got to follow up on the madness that ensued. But no, I didn't get to see it. Was there not that many throwback paint schemes?
No, there were a lot. There were like 8.
Yeah, I just apologize. I was trying not to see how pretty they looked. I was trying to pass me, but it was
right. You're trying to
it was
get by them.
it was cool. I saw I thought Sanders had a cool one because it was the old Mark Martin
Yep.
Yeah.
throwback, and he had the number 6 on it, which was cool. So it matched, his league number to a paint. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Good times. Thanks to everybody who participated in the throwback. You get a chance to watch the replay. We got to focus in on everybody, so check it out.
Yeah,
And
okay.
well, I was searching the old interwebs here. It looks like the Atlanta put up lights in 2009 in the summer. So don't know when the scan was or whatnot, but yeah, it looks to be summer of 2009.
All right. Well,
thanks for that.
The trucks are moving on to Talladega this week. Looks like 22 people currently signed up, and a handful of people getting penalties. So it should be interesting to see how that plays out with the truck qualifying and everything. Being a super speedway, going to be shaken up, be a different winner. Probably not one of our guys has been at the front this season, so we'll see how that shakes out. You guys looking forward to Talladega?
I'm always looking forward to it up to the race, and then usually halfway in, I'm over it. So hopefully we can have some good long green flag runs, and not a whole lot of pushing in corners, and a little bit of a lot of drafting, and just some patience there in the first, we'll say, 3/4 of the race. But it's always a crapshoot at a super speedway. You never know where you're going to wind up, so it'll be interesting.
So for the two drivers here, Justin, Eric, do you guys think that new aero package change for the trucks is going to come into effect at Talladega?
That's a good question.
I think that it can for guys further on, maybe back in the draft. Maybe they get a little tight. The trucks on a super speedway just drive completely different because, James can probably tell you, and Eric probably tell you. It takes forever to get out of a 2x2 off of the restart. So there's a lot of guys just jockeying around trying to leapfrog and everything else, really early to try and get towards the front. But it's hard to break away, I think, and get to a more traditional single file, in the cup car as it is compared to the truck. So I personally am not a big fan of the trucks on the super speedways. So kind of in the same camp as Eric. Like, you look forward to it because it's a super speedway and you can have a lot of fun on a super speedway. If you get people you can work with and everything else, then you're white knuckling the whole race. But after a while, it's like, something's got to happen where people either start to break away and everything else. So we'll see. I think the aero package will probably have an impact. We're gonna find out.
I think it's going to. It's definitely good. I could notice it at Atlanta, for instance. Especially to where a car would get on your rear in a turn, and it would make it loose. Not terrible, but it definitely was noticeable over what it used to be. We'll see. Obviously, it's a different package. Atlanta isn't a super speedway package, but it could have a different. The truck could act differently to where it may suck in faster, or you could see some some single car slingshots across the on the sides. So it could run differently. I don't know. I haven't experimented with it yet. So,
well, just if you guys could just kind of take like some mental notes there on what changes, like if somebody's on your door going through the corner, if it loosens you up more, or because there's going to be side drafting, there's going to be bumping in the corners, even though you don't want it. So just try and kind of remember those things and see how much it's changed since they did that update. But be interesting to see. Have to see who comes out of it with a win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anybody's game.
Regardless of the update, I think that as long as they stay too wide, everything, there's a little bit of wiggle room. I know Talladega's a little wider than Daytona, a little longer straightaways. It's when they go 3 wide, and they start really getting rolling 3 wide that with any unknowns, it's not going to last long going 3 wide. So my recommendation, if you don't want to do pacing laps, try to stick to 2 wide at least until you're confident, or coming down to the last couple of laps.
For sure. So I'm just going to go over points here, guys. For some reason, my slide doesn't want to go up on the screen. So following the race over the weekend, Nick Aslin's in the lead, 356 points total. Dustin Reinstuttle, driver of the 11 truck, in second, 33 points behind. Justin Thaler, you're 58 points behind the leader in third. 25 behind Dustin, so you could close some gap there. Sean Happick, 75 points behind the leader in fourth. And Ty Williams, 79 points behind the leader in fifth. Mark Cochran, 90 points behind sixth. Robert Sanders, you're 106 points behind the lead. Seventh. Trevor McLaughlin, 110 points behind in eighth. And Brandon Conton, 113 points behind in ninth. And Travis Jones, 130 points behind. That rounds out the top 10, guys. So we're going to go
I have
ahead.
a correction. Go
ahead.
Atlanta Motor Speedway got lights in 1998.
Oh,
It
it
was
is
part
your
of the
fault,
renova-
Anthony.
It was part of the renovations in 2009, but 1998.
That's a long time for the lights not to be on.
iRacing slipping.
2009 was the first race, the first cup race at Atlanta under the lights.
Our amazing race control director did confirm it was added to the service before the night and day system was implemented to iRacing. So
Ah,
the only thing we were, that was keeping anybody's hopes and dreams alive was that lowly Sunoco sign in turn one lit up. But as soon as you went through the corner, it was pretty dark. It was a shining beacon of hope for everybody until it wasn't.
So to carry over to our last oval race of the weekend, we had the Cup Series out at the old Rockingham track. Also a throwback race. Go ahead, James. Talk us through this one, man. I know we kind of just let this one stew from the beginning of the show. We we just kind of like put it on the back burner for a little bit, but go ahead, man.
well, it too was a throwback race, and then there were some really good looking paint jobs out there. There were 3 guys that came out with Rusty Wallace Midnight paint. I thought that was pretty awesome. Robert Olavison in the 22, Justin Thaler in the 2, the only one that obviously could have been the most realistic, but Eric in the 15 out of Midnight as well. And I could see the red outline of the yellow numbers on the 15, so that was a nice touch, man. Pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Like I say, we're trying to keep it positive over here. No, but from practice, you could tell it was going to be madness. There were body pieces flying everywhere. I don't know if anybody got more than 2 or 3 clean laps in the 20 minutes of practice from all the wrecking and crashing that was going on. It's a good thing that doesn't the incidents don't start counting until the race starts. Let's just put it that way. But that was probably a little bit of foreshadowing. Just really, I mean, I'm sure the drivers will tell you again. It seemed like it was going to be great, and it was great. It's a race. I mean, we're racing. We're out here in our sim rig, you know. But I think 3 or 4 laps, maybe a 10-lap run, there was another caution. So I think that's the tail of the tape is going to be the number of cautions. There were 18 cautions for 71 laps out of the 200 laps total. So a third of the race was run pacing. Yeah, I mean, I really. So I mean, what ended up happening was that people were making up their own strategies. Some guys were coming in for repairs. Some guys were coming in to get fuel, and then they were having another caution, and so then some guys would stay out. So almost everybody was on their own strategy. There were probably 3 or 4 different strategies because there were 3 or 4 cautions that were, maybe 8 or 10 laps apart from each other, including the pacing laps. So I really expected the Cup drivers to be a little more aware of their position and knowing where the wall is, and you know, I just don't see why it's so important to be so aggressive on lap 80 of 200. If you lose 1 spot, if you lose 3 spots, find the line, get back in it, and find your car, and then try to figure out how to get those positions back without running through somebody. And it wasn't really that anybody was running over anybody. It seemed like most of the spins were tank slappers that were either caught, not caught, I got it, I don't got it, and then into the wall, and then finally spinning around and bodies flying everywhere and smoke everywhere and people wrecking behind them, checking up, or I got it, I don't got it, and spinning around and hitting somebody else instead of the wall or instead of the inside wall. So, yeah, it seemed like it really wasn't necessarily aggression, although there were some guys that split up towards the outside and either left reared themselves or right reared somebody else. But yeah, it just the way that played out, and at the end of the day, we ran all 200 laps, and it was a barn burner down for the green white checker. Justin Taylor and Walker McNulty were in front at the green white checker, and Justin got a great jump on old tires too, if I believe, right, Justin?
Yeah. I think my last pit
ancient
stop
tires.
was like 164 or something. Maybe was my last pit stop. So yeah,
Yeah.
Walker had like 20 lap newer tires than me.
That's huge. 20 laps newer tires, but he couldn't catch you in 2 laps. But they got off to a good start. I'll go through the green white checker, and 56 or was it 36? One of the guys ended up tank slapping coming off of 4, coming to the white, and after Justin had taken the white and Walker had taken the white, he tank slapped into the wall and took out 3rd through 18th. And so then it was just Walker and Justin going down the back stretch together. Justin was in the lead on the high line, took an earlier arc than maybe normal, and Walker was already kind of committed to a tight line as well because said he was going to wrap the bottom in the post race interview. And Justin left the room, and Walker just barely slid up into Justin's left rear. If you haven't seen the replay, you should. It's absolutely amazing. Check it out on Twitch because Walker just barely nudged him, and Justin on old tires had a big tank slapper, ran it up just 1 or 2 lanes, caught it, and but Walker ended up doing. It wasn't even a bump and run because it was going into the turn. It wasn't like he bumped you out of the way. It was just one of those incidental contact things. But Justin, I got to admit, it was a killer save, and it was a good job of driving also by Walker not to completely run through you and just punch the gas and turn right into your left rear. He left space for you to gather it up and race to the line, but you saved it. Great save, Walker McNulty with the win. He was pretty happy afterwards, and complimentary to you on the great save too. He said he'd rather door you than left rear you going into a final corner like that, but he thought it was good racing. I'm curious to know what you think about that finish, Justin.
Well,
You might see it different.
me being the cynic that I am, and just because I figured I could rile him up, he did apologize to me. And my initial response, which I did send him, was, well, it's impressive that your last win here at Midwest Motorsports, or your last race was a win here. And he said, please don't. And I said, I'm just kidding, man. I'm not upset about it. I said, I left it open. I should have moved down a little bit sooner because I knew throwing the block at the bottom was all I would have been able to do anyway. But no, I'm not mad about it at all. It was a good hard fight. I was surprised, honestly, I was able to hold him off that long, with the condition my tires were in off of the start. But, I mean, I had a good start, but he also, he didn't try and send it in anywhere in the one or anything else on any of the laps. So he raced respectful to the end. And, it did look like netcode anyways, and a little bit. And the netcode looked like it might have turned my car down a little bit, but I'm not upset. Kudos to him. It was a good race. I with the way that race was going, I was trying to pull off his Richmond strategy where he just basically never pit. So didn't quite work out for me.
Yeah, I did get to watch the last 30 laps of that race, I believe. I was sitting on the couch and I decided to pop into it and look, and it looks like the last 30 laps, the aggression was at like an all-time high, and you just see like people throwing their cars into the corners. Kind of, there was some dooring, there was nosing, there was a lot of driving that you wouldn't normally see in our series. I don't know if it was just the short track aspect of it or what. Maybe it's just a crazy weekend.
It actually started off at turn 4 when the pace car pulled in when we were going to lap 1.
Going to lap 1?
Yeah.
Pretty much. It was.
Man.
I mean, it's a little. We don't expect to never have a caution flag by any means. I mean, stuff happens. It happens, but we got 200 laps. There's, you gotta drive within your limits, and
Yeah.
it's a league. You're racing these guys every week. It's, I wouldn't want to, put any competitor in. I mean, you got to finish the race yourself and drive within your own limits first. And you'd be surprised. I mean, Eric, what you said it during the race. What did you say about you had damage and you were how many laps down, and you came back?
Yeah, I had 4 minutes worth of damage. I ran out of talent about lap 10. Spun the car around, coming out of 2, and I had some damage, right? Because I got collected, and I wound up a lap down and got it back. And then had all my damage fixed, but I wasn't racing anybody aggressively at that point. I was just turning laps and trying to get my feel, and then come to be lap 40 to go or whatever the case was, I was leading the race, and it was that patience of me just really learning the track and learning where I was going to be fast versus just trying to be fast every lap. That ultimately stuck me back into the lead, right, and on the lead lap. But yeah, we'll stop.
You make a great point about driving within your limits. I did see a lot of guys, like we mentioned, tank slappers. Well, that's a direct result of getting on the gas and losing the control of the car, and then you're out of control and trying to recover, and then trying to set a new lap record on every single lap. I just don't see how that is more fun than racing with your buddy, a guy ahead of you, and watching him either take the corner right or miss it, and lifting and letting him collect it and learning from it. And then you guys are racing together. It seems like even following somebody would be more fun than pacing. I just don't think that it's the best representation of somebody who's here to have fun to drive out of their control and ruin somebody else's day or ruin somebody else's race. I don't know what the solution is other than to, ask the drivers to drive with more respect and in their limits, and wait till the last quarter of the race to really go competitive. And once you have an idea for how the car works for you and how your buddies are driving too, because I'd rather have 10 laps at 3/4 speed than 20 laps of pacing.
Yeah.
That's just me from the outside looking in.
So I have to ask, guys, with all of us, either racing in the sim or watching races. After a race like this, do you kind of race your competitors a little bit differently? Like, say you get walled or putting some really unsavory positions more often than once in the last couple of weeks. Do you guys kind of change how you race against your competitors? I mean, me speaking, I've had some run-ins with people where you kind of get some unfavorable outcomes, and you kind of, in my instances, I just try to give them a little bit more of a hard time going through the corner, kind of pinch them down and such.
What are you doing, Ann? Trying to
Just
like
sitting here.
create conversation here. So yes.
He's doing his job as the producer of our podcast.
Yeah.
I'm-
You know, there's probably going to be instances where, you know, I don't block, but I'll probably block from now on. A few people, you know, and they're not going to like it, and that's fine. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, if I'm better off with you behind me than you on my door, you know, going into a turn. So, you know, we'll there's definitely people that you're going to be aware of on how to get around them. Uh, and you learn that every week by racing those guys too, right?
For sure.
But when it comes to the short track stuff and you know, the aggression, yeah, it'll be different from my seat. Maybe not from others, but I'll be more defensive, I guess is what I'm going to say. I'm going to be more defensive.
Yeah. No, I get that. Like I said, there's some drivers that I got the short end of the stick on, and I still kind of run them hard through the corners, just pinch them down and such, just because. I mean, if you constantly give and give and give and give, and you're just on the receiving end of all that aggressive drive, and you're getting wrecked or put in really bad situations, they see your car and it's like, oh well, I can go dive the nose in on this guy, and it's like, well, no, you can't. I mean, if you leave that door open all the time, they're going to take it. So I get it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you know, both of you really, you hate to even think that you're gonna have to drive, you know, differently against different people, but you know, you can only get either pushed around or you know, show if somebody's not showing you the respect that you're giving them, then you know, like Ant said, you can only get used up so many times. So, um, I mean, our motto is here, you know, race the way you want to be raced. So, you know, if you want to send it completely uncontrolled into the corner when you know you're multiple car lengths back, and be damned to the other guy, will, I mean, don't be surprised if it comes back to you. But you hate to do it. You know, I try and at least give everybody respect, and I have no problem if somebody beats me out by leaving me space or me leaving them space, and they beat me outright. They beat me outright. If they're faster, they're faster. But to get, you know, doored or you know, have somebody send it on you, and you gotta check up and lose, you know, multiple places possibly because of that. And yeah, there's no room for that. You can only deal with that so often.
I really feel like this, I can hope, was a really just a one off. I think more than, I mean, racers are known to have really long memories, and you know, you always remember that time that you got taken out by X guy or Y guy or whoever. But I think more than anything, there were a couple tonight or last night. Um, I, in road course racing and RC racing and slot car racing, we call them squirrels. There's a couple guys that you don't want to be anywhere near them because you don't. They're just completely out of control. And I think that's the kind of memory or kind of things that when I'm racing online with people that I know or even that I don't know, you know, that I look out for to preserve my race. But last night there were so many guys that got taken out and wrecked by stuff that was completely out of their fault and out of their control. Yellow flag comes up. A couple guys forgot to let off the gas in the yellow. Almost everybody has a pit lane start barred from qualifying next week in Talladega. That's a first, I think. I think there was a truck race where almost everybody got had a pit lane starter end of line for every caution until the stage. So I did a little bit of research and looked at the yellow flags this season. There were 18 at Rockingham. There were only 10 at Daytona, the super speedway. The closest one was a short track, was Richmond, where there were 16. At our longest race of the season at Charlotte, there were only 3 cautions at Charlotte, and that was a 200 lap race with 20 cars. So the fact that this one, we had 18 cautions, twice as many. I mean, last season there were 18 cautions at North Wilkesboro and 24 cautions at Martinsville, 120 laps of pacing. So it just seems like maybe 1 or 2 races a season seem to be a kind of a wreck fest, and then either people give up and decide that this league's not for them, which is really unfortunate that that happens when you have a one-off race and make somebody so upset that they want to give up. But so that's what I mean. Nobody wants to take somebody's fun, ruin somebody's enjoyment. We're all here for the same reason, so let's just try to remember that. That's what I'm going to stick with.
Yeah, I think one of these days we're going to learn that we need to take tracks off the schedule that you have to use your brake.
Hey, honestly, I hope we don't ever get to that point because those are some of the funnest tracks to run.
I love running
They
short
are.
track. I love running an intermediate, per se, but they seem to be our dirtiest, and they continue to draw bad taste in everybody's mouth, right? When the essence is, we just need to drive within our means. Like, stop sticking your nose where you can't control it, or just trying to get that extra spot, because essentially that's what's doing it, So
Yeah, these are long races. I mean, you got to use your head and put it in the practice when you can. I don't expect everybody, the night after week 3, they start practicing, up until week 4. I mean, there's a lot going on for everybody outside of the league, and not everybody, can spend probably as much time as they want in their sim rig. But I mean, you got to figure out there's material out there. You can basically search any car and any track combo, a fixed setup on YouTube, and look at a track guide, and a lot of them are very thorough and telling you, braking markers or where to lift and how to rotate the car and take a corner, and as your tires wear, be cognizant of that. And it's not about hot lapping anymore. So we have good fields. This is what we've been striving for, with getting the cup field filled up, and getting clean drivers who are respectful to their fellow competitors. And you can only say sorry so many times, and during the course of a race, until some people just aren't going to deal with it anymore.
For sure. So we'll go ahead, take a look at the points that have been up on the screen here for a bit. Following the race there, looks like Justin, you're back up on top. Ty Williams, 3 points behind you in second. Walker McNulty, man, he's making up some ground. What is it, three wins this season? He's up to third place, 41 points behind the lead. Dustin, 46 points behind the lead in fourth. Trevor McLaughlin, 60 points behind in fifth. Going down through the last 5 there, Mike Scamilla, 64 points behind in sixth. Brian Thayer, 73 points behind in seventh. I myself am 80 points behind in eighth. Jason Huffman, 86 points behind in ninth. And Eric, you're in 10th place, 87 points behind. So, Cup Series heading to Talladega. I know drafting tracks, we usually have some pretty good runs there. A lot of side drafting, a lot of bumping. So it should be a good watch. JT, don't blow your motor up in practice again, and everybody should be good to go for the weekend.
I'll blow it in practice. I got a couple in the crate engines. So.
Yeah, you don't get a grid penalty for changing them out in Cup. Anybody have anything else? Are we good to close this up?
I'm great, man.
Yeah.
After Talladega, there's a off week and then 3 races for both series. So we are getting down towards the end of the season. So bring your A game to Talladega, and hopefully we'll keep it clean.
Yeah, for sure. The last thing I'll add is, we did throw up, those of you listening that are in the league and stay present in Discord, we did throw up a poll for basically, how the season's going to what you'd like to see for next season. So, take a look at it, fill it out. We do appreciate it. It's where we get our content from. So get some time, take a look. Thanks.
All right. Well, with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and close this up for the week. Everybody, make sure you tune in tomorrow night for the road series. It starts up at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock is practice.
7 o'clock
At
practice.
7:30 is the race. Yep.
All right. Hop in and watch some practice. See if it's raining or not. Trucks this weekend start 9:30 in Talladega, Friday night, and Sunday at 7 we start practice for the Cup Series at Talladega as well. We'll catch you all around and be back here next week to break everything down.
Don't forget to stay in your lane.